Hello, my name is Tara Welling, and I would like to introduce you to another in my long series of videos. This one is still about the Tulsa Genocide, the Tulsa riot, mass murder, whatever you want to call it. More accurate to describe it as the Tulsa Genocide. The Tulsa Genocide was actually profoundly more layered, detailed, and complicated than I knew it was during my last video. The Trail of Tears ended about 70 miles almost due east, and the Hearthaver Stone makes an just shy of a perfect square with the end of the Trail of Tears, about 70, 80 miles southeast. The Hearthaver Stone is about 19 degrees just off center from being a perfect right angle triangle. So, as the evidence is coming together, it appears that Tulsa was not founded in the late 1800s. It was more founded in the either early 1800s as a little over 3 horizons due west of the end of the Trail of Tears, 1820, you're going to find Tulsa, Oklahoma. Well, that location, at least in that generalized area of the location of Tulsa and the end of the Trail of Tears being roughly in Oak, Oklahoma, and the Hearthaver Stone being close enough to almost dead on the money to a right angle triangle, indicates that Tulsa itself is a secondary city it's a neighborhood city of a suburb of the suburb of the suburb of the original city that the French sailed the Arkansas River and the other creek tributaries in the area, as well as the location of the end of the Trail of Tears. English Americans could only come so far west before running into strongholds that the British and French still possessed in the new continent. Although it is entirely accurate to say that the land was sold by Napoleon, a libertine, to the Americas, that doesn't mean Now, the British and English are two entirely separate cultures. This needs to be understood from the immediate get-go. The English are descendants from the Romans, and the British are descendants from the Trojans. Unfortunately, it does actually mean that the Trail of Tears and the Tulsa Massacre are close to exactly the same subject, and they're both part of the Trojan War, which started at the palace at Knossos about 10 years before the Theseus and Agamemnon battled over supremacy of the Minotaur, and either killing or taking the Minotaur from the possession of King Knossos. The Trojan War ended in Whatcom County in about 1889. The Trail of Tears ends. A lot of the natives, Africans, and Jews who were forcibly taken to Oklahoma because they were not Aryan stock. They were not Muslims either, which Aryans and Muslims were allowed to stay in the South. Everyone else had to move out, and they were forced relocated. The blacks, the Hebrews, the Jews, the natives and such were relocated forcibly, killing a huge multitude of them to Oklahoma. Well, that's only a part of the story. They were moved to there, and they were dropped off in Oklahoma. But the army continued moving the north up to Kansas, and then follow the Arkansas River across the southern part of Kansas to the soon-to-be called Colorado, although it wouldn't be called that for several decades, to the headwaters of the Arkansas River, which is the city of Old Colorado City, which used to be the Rocky Mountain. There's also the city of Manitou, which is just a few miles west of Old Colorado City. This is one of the primary locations that the Confederacy reformed, regrouped, and continued being inappropriate. And the daughter of Jefferson Davis, Margaret Davis Hayes, and her husband moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado. Well, specifically also Colorado City, but that's semantic when you have a metropolis. And they started to recreate the Confederacy there. Well, another branch of the Confederacy moved to Linden, Washington, the Dutch part of the family, and Dutch part of the organization of the Confederacy, and they started to recreate the Confederacy in Linden, which is very, very interesting and that recreating the Confederacy actually is in part what led to the end of the Trojan culture, the Trojan War, and the British culture as a whole in the Americas ended there. The British culture has been used as a facade by the English for the last more than half a millennia. The Trail of Tears was about seizing control over the natives, the Africans, the Jews, and whoever else might have known any detail whatsoever, even microscopic details, about the Memento Mori ceremony of ancient Rome. Now, the ancient ceremony of Memento Mori, very, very likely, after the collapse of the Roman Empire, renamed itself into Freemasonry. But Freemasonry is the part of the victim, 1A victim, telling his story. That's what Freemasonry is based off of. The Roman version is the people who then killed our boy. I'm a Freemason. I'm also York Rite, Scottish Rite, and I don't know if I still am, but I used to be Shriner. The Trail of Tears was a much smaller version on a much smaller scale of the triangle trade. The triangle trade's primary obligation was to, part one, was to place native Africans in the state of slavery to be able to profit off of them. The profits then paid for the research to be able to interrogate all involved to find out if they knew anything about the Memento Mori ceremony. Now, the Memento Mori ceremony, its foundation base aspects is part 1A is some type of violence, some type of inappropriate behavior, some type of genocide, some type of assault, from no big deal to full crime against humanity. Part 1B is some type of emotional response, and or from the most innocent and childlike up to the most not. Then there is part 2, that's the parade, that's the community involvement. It's specifically supposed to be honoring Janus, and when Janus is not honored in a sufficient way, Janus does not like that, at least some type of a electromagnetic statistical analysis of if Janus is not honored correctly, Janus reacts badly and bad things happen to that society. Honor Janus correctly and we're good to go. Now, in the past 2,000 years, a little bit less, the concept of Janus has switched from being Janus to it's now spelled J-E-S-U-S. J as opposed to the Latin version, which was J-A-N-U-S. So all you're doing is slightly changing the A to an E and the N to an S, and you have Janus is Jesus, Jesus is Janus, and because it's the rising sun, the Christ light, Janus, the east face of Janus is the rising sun. It looks at the rising sun. The west face of Janus looks at orbital west, and things are very, very, that's a whole another ball of wax. The Memento Mori is named from the Menkaure Pyramid, M-E-M-E-N-T-O. That's the Memento Mori ceremony. M-E-M-Kaure is the farthest south pyramid on the Giza Plateau. So you have, and the pyramids, if you draw a line from the top to the bottom, form the double spine of Janus. Janus, Jesus, rising sun. The east face of Janus looks at the rising sun every morning. The west face looks at the setting sun every night. Now, the Trail of Tears was about trying to determine how to recreate the Memento Mori ceremony, because the Memento Mori ceremony itself gives the promise of eternal life. Somewhere in the mythology, it's been lost to history, but there's a promise of either resurrection or eternal life or some type of returning from the dead or that type of thing. Washington Irving's The Tale of the Headless Horseman, the Tale of Sleepy Hollow, is about this exact ceremony. Also, Frankenstein is about this exact ceremony. Also, there's a number of things that are about this exact ceremony. The Trail of Tears was about, part 1 was about inappropriate behavior, assaulting other humans. Part 2 was about trying to extract, using emotional situations and emotional pain, to extract information about the ceremony to the people who were asking. In this case, it was the Muslims and the Americans and the English, and possibly the Vatican was still asking about it because they had lost the secrets of their own founding. Jesus went through layers and layers and layers of Memento Mori. Those 3 acts are found throughout the crucifixion. Almost, you can't go more than a couple words in the description and not run into either 1A, assault, 1B, some type of an emotional situation, and the whole thing happened inside of a parade, inside of a community involvement. So you have the 3 acts, repeat, 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 and you have different characters and actors coming in and out of the crucifixion. So you have a lot of going on there. So the aim of the Trail of Tears, the aim of the slave trade, the aim of the Trojan War was to find all the different key pieces of information so that they can recreate the Memento Mori Ceremony, so that they can recreate the concept of returning someone from the dead, or bringing someone back to life, or giving their leaders eternal life, or something to that effect. And that's the essence of why the Trail of Tears occurred, other than the obvious moving non-Aryans off of Aryan claimed land. But there's a lot more to it, a profoundly larger amount to it. There's also the whole Houston and the Third Reich, the Koch family operating from Houston to Dallas, up through the Tulsa, Oklahoma, up to Wichita, which is the Koch family compound. Well, that line of roads and such linking Houston to Wichita, the NASA facility is there too, which means that there's a connection between Houston, the Koch family, and Peenemunda, which is highly, highly fascinating. Which means that Peenemunda and the rocketry, the V1, the V2 project, the not built but partially thought of V3, which the V3 led directly to von Braun designing the Saturn V. The Saturn V rocket was designed under the Third Reich, and von Braun refused to give it to the Third Reich. Thank you. But that doesn't mean that some of those plans and some of that operational structure was not in Houston already before 1830. Things are very complicated. The Trail of Tears, and the Trail of Tears having the blacks, the natives, the Jews, and such, all non-Aryans evacuated out of forcibly removed from the south. They go a little over 3 entire horizon lines from the end of the Trail of Tears in Oklahoma to found Tulsa, and then you have 3 horizons lines later. You have the road system that links Dallas with Wichita. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. Thank you very much for watching my videos. If you want to like this and become a member of my channel, please feel free to do so.